We're here talking today with Mohamed Sayed, who is, well, you'll find out more about him, but he's right now in Bloomington, Indiana, doing a PhD and doing some other things as well, which I want to ask him about, originally from Egypt. And Mohammed, why don't we start, if it's okay with Egypt, and we'll fill out that biography with some interesting things you've been doing with your life. But you're a graduate of Al-Azhar University, right? So assume I know nothing about Al-Azhar University. What is this institution?
So, I'm Mohamed Sayed. I am coming from a rural village in Egypt. One of the passions I had in my life is to have a different approach to study of religion in Egypt, which, uh, as a Muslim, when you live around fellow Muslims, we all think the same way. And for me, I felt there is something missing, especially with those who would finish their high school diploma with high grades. They go to STEM schools. For me, like the goal was different, and I'm not claiming this to myself only, but with the help of my father, some friends that we were discussing this a lot. That why people with high grades don't go to Islamic studies schools. Like, so we would have better results and better graduates. So this was one of the goals I had in my mind. And I got a high degree in the high school diploma, but then I have this idea in my mind and I joined the Islamic Studies School at Al-Azhar University. This was like 2 hours commuting every day. At Al-Azhar, like for me, the experience was unique. The way that we have modern new schools, different from the ones that the Azhar previously had in a place called Darasa. So Darasa is one campus where the Islamic studies schools should be. So we have five Islamic studies schools. Then we have the School of Islamic and Arabic Studies. This is the one that I joined. When I joined the school, I cannot say fortunately or unfortunately, the school was moved to Nasser City in the new campus of Al-Azhar, which is like sit different way, and it is away from the vibes that I later discovered that the great vibes of the old Cairo, where Al-Azhar, the old campus for Al-Azhar University still exists. So I joined the school there. It was a different experience for me as an Azhari student who started with elementary, middle, and high school in Al Azhar. For me, the college was a different experience. With some professors, like gave me like some negative impression, with some amazed me and made me to be more enthusiastic to discover more and study more. So it was this kind of an experience and first year with me being a student with many plans, many hopes, trying to do as much as possible, then like, you get hit by the bureaucracy and how things are like there outside in the reality. So I forgot to give a brief information about Al-Azhar. Al-Azhar is one of the prestigious Islamic schools in the Muslim world. Over the history, was kind of a referential place with authority as well as a Muslim institution. So Al-Azhar plays a rule that has some religious type of religious authority that can be compared or parallel to the Vatican in the Christian world as well. So
Could I interrupt you for a second? I just want to
yes,
clarify something in terms of what you're saying. So you go to Al-Azhar University, which is traditionally known for religious studies, but then half a century ago, it added all these other faculties, law, medicine,
yes,
and so on, and they're out at the new campus. So you go
yes.
to study religion in Old Cairo, but then your religious faculty gets moved out to the other modern one.
Yes,
Then-
yes,
So
yes,
so you're
yes,
you're you're still studying the a religious curriculum, but it's in this
yes,
new setting, okay.
yes, yes. So one of my plans was that I should learn a foreign language, so I would be able to have an exposure to the literature written about Islam in other universities and other in different like places. Like, so for me, this was something that I never thought about. Like for many people in Egypt, there's no idea that there are other people who are interested in Islam outside the Muslim world. One of the high profile professors in the School of Sharia one day mentioned to me that why do we need to go there to study Islam? We are the masters of it. So for him, like there is no study of Islam outside Al Azhar or outside those traditional schools. So thank God that this came after I had enough exposure to what is there and how it is new and genuine as well. That requires attention, and like we should also be engaged with that. So at the early stages in the college, I wanted to study English, but this was not feasible. And I was lucky enough that the Grand Imam of Al-Azhar opened that section, the private section, that where they select the top 20 students of the Islamic studies colleges to study as part of a funded fellowship from the Office of the Grand Imam at the British Council. And I was the second batch to join that after being one of the top students in the first year. So I was planning to study English in a different route, but it came to be part of my school and part of kind of an honor degree that I will get after I finish the college. So I was privileged to study at the British Council, and I was selected to even have a trip to the UK for a cultural exchange for like 2 months. And for me, like going to the study in the British Council and start meeting some faculty and professors from the UK, this was an eye opening for me that, hey, there are professors of Islamic studies who are not even Muslims. For me, this something was like, another shock, like, oh, so I started to get to know more and more and to read more and more, and then it became like a goal for me to, oh, I have to go study there, and I have to study from the other perspective. I want to know it. I want to know the culture as well. I want to understand it. I cannot understand what's written without living this culture and being exposed to new questions.
So I want to find out a little bit more about like the transition from studying it within Al-Azhar to studying it outside. But let me first, if I can go back, you said you're from a rural area, but you're from Ghent,
Yes.
is that right? Which
Yes. Yes.
people outside of Egypt will associate with the pyramids, but you're still from a rural
Yes,
location.
yes. I'm from a village called Dashur. This is one of the historical places where we have the oldest pyramid in the history. So the 7,000 year one, it is in our village. So people always know that there are only three pyramids, but there are many in Egypt, and ours is the first. Like, and the second one was like the step pyramid, which is 5 or 6 kilometers from where I live as well.
Okay, so but the pharaohs are gone, and now it's an agricultural village, right?
Yes, yes.
So what's it like going from a village to going to the center of, one of the busiest cities in the world? Tell us a little bit about that, not just from a religious,
That's
but
true.
from a
Yeah.
social
So
angle.
moving from the village to the city, this was for me kind of the first eye-opening moments. Like during the school year until the last year in the high school, I was still local in my area. But going out, discovering a new world, discovering Cairo with this like crowdness, uh, for me, like I started to gain some experiences, some skills, and also I realized something that's sad, that how this privilege, how like people who live in rural areas deprived of many things that are accessible for those who live in Cairo. I came also to realize that my friends who spend their early like stages of life, like school and middle and high school in Cairo, how they will have access to many things. Like for example, language, computer. For me, like I started to learn computer when I was in college. I studied language at the village. Was one of the things. I was one of the luckiest. I'm not sure if there are similar cases, but my father, when I was 6 years old, he used to tell me that if you would like to have a good future and a flourishing future, you have to learn at least one language beside Arabic and to study the Quran. So for him, the Quran is like for spiritual reasons and the language for material reasons. So he would tell me this every time we talk, like when I was 6 years old. And he enrolled me in a English class when I was 6 years old. For Azharis, we start learning a foreign language in the sixth grade. I was as the only one in the whole Azhari Institute in the elementary level who started English when I was in the first grade, and it was a private tutor who teach me. So when came to the sixth grade, I would already memorize all the English curriculum and I would know it. But this didn't continue with me because being in the adolescence age and just like being somehow reckless in the middle school, I lost most of it, and then I had to start over again when I went to college to bring this dream back again. Like my dad wanted me to do this, and that's why I had this like and he was one of those who told me like you would flourish more in an Islamic studies school. Even though I was the top student in math and science in my school, but and I wanted to go to the engineering school, but my dad kind of like was telling me, but you would do more better because you have passion towards understanding the like those juristic debates and all those things. So we would do better in Islamic school, and I followed that passion with the push of my dad, and this is where I am now.
Okay, so you're one of these select students at Al-Azhar, and how do you wind up going from Al-Azhar to
Okay.
Indiana?
There's the longest story. So this story, as I said, started with me in college being exposed to some of the literature that is written in English in the UK first, and then in the United States. And second, going to the British Council. Third, visiting the UK as well and studying at Leeds University and going to the library there, seeing that there's a lot that's written about Islam in English that I need to. And then like this it became like this is the primary goal now to focus on. I want to prepare myself to do this. And I started working harder on my English to be able to pass the TOEFL, the GRE, and all those funny exams. It was like really difficult for me, like how I'm gonna sponsor the school. So one of my like professors at Al-Azhar University, he kind of led me towards Fulbright. So I applied for Fulbright 3 times, and at the 3 times I didn't know how to do it. So I failed the 3 times, and but the three fails made me kind of an expert. So the fourth time I went, I was asked only one question, which is introduce yourself, and I took it from there, and I was not asked any further questions because I got some vibes that I'm somehow like one of their candidates. So I got an opportunity to represent Al Azhar for the Department of the States. There is a program for visitors at the Department of the States. So I was one of those who were chosen, selected to represent Al Azhar. So I came to the US in 2015, and during this visit is when Fulbright sent me an email that I was accepted to their master's program. So it was for me like, things like I came to the US first, and the Fulbright accepted me. So I came in this visit was one of my goals, of course, to represent Al Azhar, to meet some officials and, those protocol like meetings and stuff like that. But one of the goals was to visit, like, George Washington campus because it's very close to where everyone, where all the action is. And I didn't do it. The program was very busy. I didn't meet anyone, but this was one of the goals. And I wanted to see if any of the professor would be willing to sponsor me. This didn't happen, and for but during the visit, I got the letter from Fulbright that I'm their principal candidate for the Islamic Studies program. So yeah, the journey starts there. I started also again, like I put some universities, and they choose Temple University for me for the master. So you pick five, and they choose for you like one. It's not because I'm in this interview, but I already put George Washington and Georgetown because I visit Washington. But they choose Temple because they have their own considerations, like for the financial assistance and all those things. So I went to Temple University in Philadelphia. But before that, I got another invitation from the International Institute for Education. It is in Washington as well. So they sent me an invitation to do a exchange program for 8 months before my master's degree. And I was one of the luckiest. Like this program opened only for 1 year, where me and one of my friends went, and they didn't do it again. But it was a good thing for me because it introduced me to the American culture, the American life before I would engage in an academic study, and I would see how I would struggle if I started right away to do the master's degree. So I did a academic English program and general English program at the RIT, the Rochester Institute for Technology, for 8 months.
Okay. So I'm gonna ask you something about Leeds and Temple and actually at
Yes.
Rochester as well. These are places there are some, Muslims, there are plenty of Muslims in the UK, there are plenty of Muslims in Philadelphia, but they're from all over the world. They're South Asian, they're from the, Arab world, Iranians, and so on. So what's it like going from an environment in which every Muslim you know pretty much in your village, at Al-Azhar, almost all of them are Egyptian, to one in which, sometimes they don't have they may have a common religious language, but they probably they speak to each other in English just as much as in any other language. So what's it like being in a multicultural Muslim
Yeah, this
environment?
was like yeah, one of also like one of the great experiences is meeting like Muslims from different backgrounds. First at Leeds, and the Leeds Grand Mosque, one of the biggest mosques in like is one of the biggest in the UK, and has one of the big muftis like Abdullah Judea. He's a member of the European Council, and one of the moments, the special moments, is when he kind of hosted us like. At his house, and he kind of told me that like for me, and as Harry student, for me is even like my kids, like you guys have. So this was one of the moments, and then introduce us to some members of the community, and people were very welcoming. And but for me, like there was also lots of changes that this is start open my eye that okay, there are people who practice different ways, and this is yeah, of course I can see this in Egypt, but it is also we know it, like, but there it was different. One of the shocking experiences also how this big conflict between the different, I cannot call them sects, but different schools of thought, and having every one of them would have a separate masjid. Every ethnicity would have a masjid. Masjid means a mosque. So Arabs would have a mosque, Indians would have a mosque, Pakistanis would have a mosque, but Pakistani Sufis would have a mosque, and Pakistani Salafis would have a mosque. And I heard about fights, physical fights, not like just talks. This was in Leeds, when I was in Leeds. And also part of it also knowing about the politics of like how mosques work in the West. There are lots of politics in there. As we have politics in our countries, there is also politics that goes there. And those politics has to do not only with the government, but has to do also with running the community, and also has to do with the politics of the schools, politics of the school of thought, and who would take the lead and who would be prevailing more. I found out also the Kurds has their own mosque, and the way they introduced me to their mosque was a little bit funny because they asked me to lead their mosque during Ramadan. So I was there during the month of Ramadan, and they asked me to lead their Taraweeh prayer, and I rejected not because I know they are Kurds or not. I didn't know who was talking to me even. He told me later, but I just rejected because I was there for I wanted to study. I wanted to focus on improving my English. This was my idea. And the guy got upset because he said, "Because you are an Arab and you are Kurdish, you don't wanna like be in mosque." And I said, "No, I don't even I never even thought about those kind of differences. I was in Egypt. We are all Egyptians. We don't have any other ethnicities." And because of what he said, I accepted to go pray every day in the mosque, even though I'm not gonna accept being the imam because I didn't want to take this responsibility. I thought I don't want to do it, and but every day I would go pray there, and he would come pick me up from my where I live. So it was kind of unique to me, and how I started learning the Kurdish language with people there, and like it was like yeah, different vibes. For me, I told like even my family there, this was my best Ramadan ever in my life. I was 19 years old. So I told him this is the best Ramadan ever I lived. Even I was away from family. This was my first time in my life to be away from the family. Even in school in Egypt, I never lived away from home. I would commute every day, but this was like yeah, a big
Okay.
transition.
So you're away from home, but you're also doing something that is different, right? So when you're in Al-Azhar, you're studying religion from people who believe in it. They're treating the Quran as a sacred text, not as a
Yes.
historical text, but as revealed by God. What is it
Mhm.
like then entering an academic institution in which they're studying Islam like they would be studying French literature, like they would be studying biology? This is something outside. This is something, an object that we're studying, not in order to understand the truth, but in order just to understand this tradition that is different from us. So what is that transition
Yeah,
like?
one of the moments I realized the transition from Egypt, from Al-Azhar to Temple University, where I started my master's degree, is when there was a question that was raised that we consider in Al-Azhar literature that this is one of the misconceptions about Islam. You know, this tradition of the whole tradition about the misconceptions about Islam, and you have really packed answers to them. And this was kind of one of the first lectures for me, and one of the first seminars, and somebody raised this question, and I just like said, okay, let's answer. It was one of those pretty packed ones, and I received another answer that was like put me like, okay, oh, I never thought about that. So the answer was just like, from the Islamic history and supported by some like, writings, literature of like also Muslim historians that goes against completely this really packed answer. And I didn't know how to answer that because I wasn't ready. And then this told me that, hey, this is not gonna be I knew it, but I didn't experience it. There's a difference when you know that this is different, but you didn't experience it. That I knew that I need to learn different approaches. It is not one approach, it is not one way. The way we learned in Al-Azhar and the way we learn in the schools is that the teacher is an authority. Whatever the teacher is saying is a fact. Whatever the professor is saying is a fact. And it is not they say that, but it is the system. Because when you go to the exam and the question is asked in a way that you have to list the facts that your professor told you during the lecture, and this way, you internalize that meaning that, oh, whatever they say is the truth. This is what needs to be written in the exam, and this means this is what is there. So this was one of the ways. But still, there were some professors who would expose us also to different schools of thoughts and their ideas and their arguments, especially when it came to usul al-fiqh, the foundation of jurisprudence or the principles of jurisprudence. This was one of the topics. But still, when I went to the US, for me, this was some of the moments where, like, I had to challenge my views. I had to challenge what I used to accept as facts, as like معلوم من الدين بالضرورة. This is the necessary knowledge that everybody should know. Yeah, this transition was big. Another way that also I realized the transition is when I wrote a research paper. Our research paper back there was not a research paper. It could be a summary. It could be like classified as just compilation of other opinions without your personality being there. So the first lesson I learned when I get a C minus from early Christianity professor, she was a very nice professor, and she knew where I'm coming from, but also she wanted to teach me that because it was not the class, but it was just one of the early papers in the class. She gave me a C minus, and then she invited me for an office hour meeting, and she told me, "I want to see you as a person, as a researcher. Now you are doing your master's, you are a researcher. You are not no longer a student to just receive the information without checking them, without saying your own opinion about them. I want you to criticize. You see, we were studying. Her book was one of the first books that we were reading in class. She said, I want you to read my book and I want to get from you a critical review. What do you think went well? What do you think went bad? And I did that. And she said, yes. So for me, this was a moment when I started to feel, oh, I have to be independent. I should start thinking a different way. And I got an A in that second paper and I give a presentation to class. But this was some of the points where I would realize that, oh, I'm transiting now from one system to another. The other thing also, the like back home, there are lots of common ground between me and everyone I'm discussing. Like regardless of their education, but there is a back like there is the common ground. We all come from the same culture, so there are lots of things in the conversation we take for granted. So I don't need to bring. But when I come here, there are lots of things that I'm not taking for granted. I have to ground them. I have to give them basis first before I would build on them and go up. And if I cannot give them basis, I have to question myself and research them again. So these are some of the like moments where I would like say that I realized the transition.
Okay, so and you're working on a PhD now in Indiana, is that right?
Yes.
And what is
Yes.
the topic of your
So
dissertation?
right now I'm working on a dissertation about Muslim legal theory within the modern nation state.
If I've got this right, so you're dealing with people who are going to an Islamic legal authority, a mufti, to give them guidance on answer to a question: is this permitted? Is this forbidden? How do you do this? How do you do that? And they're dealing with situations you're saying that are a little bit different from the past, and there are ways to deal with this. And so it's really essentially trying to, if I understand correctly, trying to take traditional Islamic legal methodology and come up with ways that it can still be used in a modern state
Yes, so
context.
this is kind of, yeah, exactly. What I'm trying to do is a middle ground between those who are stick to the text and they just like come from the text to the reality right away without any examination of the reality or the text itself. And also for those who will go with modernity completely, like, without any, I would say without any criteria for how do we know or define what's the common good
So what
and on what basis. Yeah.
so you're doing this when you go back to Al-Azhar, talk with your colleagues, maybe your former professors. Do they say, "Oh, you're spending too long in Indiana. You're coming up with all these strange ideas. Time to come back to Egypt and time to come back to Al-Azhar and do things the right way"? Do you get that kind of
Yes,
reaction?
sometimes, yes, we get this reaction to the degree that one of my friends, like, he was discussing the topic, Islamic topic, from his own perspective. He got this comment from his professor saying, "Oh, you are now 100% Western person. You are no longer thinking like a Muslim." Which was like this left my friend in, like, in sadness and grief for like this comment that this is not, and this is, again, this is what I realized when I left. It is the problem is living in a room. You interpret everything within what you have in this room, within what you knew in this room. And once you widen this, if you go to other rooms, you would know though other colors exist, other things exist. There are windows, there are things, and there are tools as well you can use. It is not, you cannot always open, like, things with your teeth. No, there is an opener, can opener outside. So the thing is that when you go out, you'll find it. And this is one of my, I would say, one of my excuse that I would give to classic jurists who choose certain choices that if you look at them now, say they are weird, but for them it was not weird because they have no alternative. Now, because we know that multiple alternatives, we say, oh, they were not thinking. No, they were brilliant within the limits of their time and what their time allowed. So again, the scholars in Al-Azhar also would, yeah, give us this face and those kind of like doubts that, oh, your brain is like, you are brainwashed, like,
Okay. So we
mainly.
talked about how you go from the village to Al-Azhar, how you go from Al-Azhar to Leeds to Philadelphia and to the classroom in Indiana. But you're not just in the classroom in Indiana. You're also,
Yes.
living in a mosque there. So there you have to leave your academic mindset behind and start being back the authority, the leader of the community, telling people what not just different points of view, but the right point of view, right? How do you manage
Okay, so
that?
one of the, like, one of one of the goals I had when I joined the academia as well is, to have the academia to affect the public life outside. I'm against that professors and academicians should be in ivory towers or looking down at people. I would say one of our primary goals is to solve people's problems and to use what we learn, academic methods and even academic approaches, in introducing knowledge to people in a way that's accessible to them. So, in a simple way, simplify the academic concepts and academic terminology, to also bring the religion, make the religion close to the people's minds. I also to find ways, since I'm dealing with like the ijtihad problem. This is what also I'm practicing within the community. I'm putting ijtihad into practice as well. So I'm not only writing about the theories of ijtihad, of reasoning, of legal reasoning, but also I'm trying to like help people with their daily lives with what I'm learning and what I'm trying to research. So my goal of accepting a position at the Islamic Center of Bloomington as a whatever, like, the title, like imam or religious director, is to bring what I learned in academia and my approach to Islam to people outside. Like, for me, I don't like to be the authority out there. I like to put things to people. I always give people, like, I always like varnish the ground with, for any argument, for any answer for the question. I give people the ability to think and to go through the mentality of the fuqaha who laid out those opinions, and make them understand it and take whatever they can take from the, I would say, the piety point of view. So the options are out there, but you choose one based on your piety, not based on you want to get away with or you want to sneak out. So this is kind of like, yeah, what I'm trying to do actually.
You sound a little bit like your teacher of early Christianity who's saying, don't just say this because you read it in my book. Come up with your own
Yes,
approach,
yes.
right?"
I want people also to be kind of, I don't know, but I like teaching. So when I give fatwas, I don't tell people, hey, do this, don't do that. I just like to teach them. So, like, whenever a person comes to ask me a question, they expect to spend 15 minutes with me explaining to them how the scholars came up to this point. And because I want people to be convinced and I want them to think, not just to take. because I believe this makes them more confident about what they are doing, and it would make them also more confident when they are following this or not following that. So, and we are not living in that in anymore in a closed community where you can tell people like follow me blindly. It is not
Is
like
it
that.
different than in Egypt? I mean, you grew up in a village, so prayed in the mosque there, seen the imam there, you would have been in Al-Azhar. Is the, kind of attitude that you take in Bloomington, is that common in Egypt? Your job is to help people understand, figure things out?
This what I try to do if I go on a vacation or so, or before I used to do this, but I was not an imam like technically. I would lead because it is not in Egypt mainly. It is a job for some people, like who are paid by the government, but millions of people are volunteers, like give like sermons, who lead prayer, and I was one of those. Like I would like because I'm Azhari, so people would push me to lead. I memorized the Quran when I was 11 years old, so people like know me that I know it, so I can lead. It is different in Egypt because the needs for the mosque in Egypt differs from the need of the mosque in the United States or in Europe. So the needs for a mosque in Egypt is just you need a place to pray. But there are other venues for people to learn. There are other things for people and I would say people have other also social venues where they can socialize. In here, Muslims, like when they socialize, for them, the mosque is a social club. It is like a place for prayer. It's a place for their kids to learn. It's a place for them to learn as well. It is a place for them to learn Arabic if they want to learn Arabic. It's a place for them to learn English for those who don't speak English. So it is, for me, I tell them here, I prefer the Islamic Center name than mosque because this is not a mosque, a traditional mosque like back home, and a mosque would have some fiqhi rules that would may put a burden in me to do some activities. So this is an Islamic center, which is a hub for Muslims where they can like fulfill many aspects that they need in their lives, not only come here and pray and go.
So it's the Islamic Center of Bloomington, so it's for all Muslims in Bloomington, but you described a situation in Leeds where every single group had its own mosque. Is the Islamic Center in Bloomington like that? Is it catered to just some people, or is it for the
Yeah,
entire
so
Muslim community?
one of the factors that would affect the population and the backgrounds and having multiple places for multiple ethnicities and multiple schools of thought is the number of the congregation, the number of the community, the Muslim population in the town. So in Philadelphia, for example, where I lived for 2 years, it was like Leeds. Every group has their own masjid. People don't pray at their others people masjids, and they have many masjids there where people can go wherever they want. But in Bloomington, the population is not that huge. We have around 700 people who are regular attendees of the main services. So this is not a large number. It is large, but it's not that large that would make two mosques or two facilities. So we have one mosque, and this was one of the biggest challenges I have because we have all those schools of thoughts in the masjid. For in the mosque for the community who comes, and for me was one of the biggest challenges because this mosque never had an imam for 30 years. So since it was established, they never had an imam. It depended on volunteer students who come to IU, Indiana University. So for me to be the first imam, there were high expectations and also there were fears that I would divide the community. I would bring those who agree with me and would kick out those who. But this was one of the biggest challenges that I never see in Egypt. They don't have this in Egypt. But here it was a challenge, but also a good opportunity for me also how to handle this, how to handle differences, how to also apply what I learned in the academy to bring all people together and to bridge the gap of the thinking between different members of the community. So I would just explain to the one who wants to do this and the one who wants to do the opposite, like where those two opinions come from and how they can live together, by the way. And you can do this here and you can do that there, and it's fine. Like this is all Islamic and it works. So there's like one of the success I made in this community that uh, how I brought a different experience and I eliminated this fear that I would divide the community as an imam by bringing them together. And I believe the community is flourishing, and we have more attendees from the students mainly. Like we have a huge population of the students who come several days a week for classes, for prayers, for circles and questions as well.
Okay. One final question, and this is about the community in Bloomington. So you talk about how you don't divide the community, or you work not to have the community divided by orientation or where they're from. But I'm also thinking maybe there would be divisions generationally. Younger people who were born, grew up in the United States, parents who are looking at their children socializing, they're going to high school parties where alcohol is served, they're going to mixed dances and this sort of thing. And the children want to be Americans because they're born in America. And the parents want them to be good Muslims because that's who they are. Do you have those kinds of problems in the community? You
Yes.
expect it to somehow unite generations as well as
Yes,
nationalities.
I just like today after Friday sermon, like I had this complaint just like 2 hours ago. Like I had a meeting with a father who was complaining about his son who was doing things an American way and he doesn't like the way his father want him to deal with other things in life. And yes, like the good thing is I have strong connections with the older community and with the younger with the youth. So what I would do is I try to kind of mitigate that and I try to kind of bring them to like I cannot make them comply completely to what everyone is saying, but just like to bridge that, having the son to have some kind of respect and listening to their parents, and also explain to the parents that your kids are not meant to live the same life you lived. There gonna be a difference, and you have to tolerate those differences. I believe like also there are lots of psychological needs that they need some respect. They need to not to feel that they are left behind, that the son knows better than me, and they like feeling now arrogant that you know. So I try to bridge this and also try to bridge this kind of psychological gap and needs that the parents need and the kids also need. Oh, I don't need any control in my life. He is no longer can control my life because I know more than him. He doesn't know even how to use a computer or how to use like the AI. I know. He doesn't know like, so I get this, like, you know, always, and it mainly about also the career and the college choice. This comes a lot. Like students wanna pursue this path. The mother calls me crying, say, "Could you convince them to go to like medical school? Like we are gonna, well, this is our dream." You got to say so. So this generational gap also one of the common. But I try to also like you know make several meetings, talk to them, make them know that like I give them examples in life that they will go to this path and be more successful than a physician. But just like give them the time, like give them they need confidence, stuff like that. I also talk to the kids to show some respect and some understanding of the parents' fears and all those things, and try to talk to their parents. So through conversation with both parties, try to kind of do this kind of bridging the gaps between them, make the fathers think how the kids are thinking, and make the kids think how their fathers are thinking as well.
That sounds more like family counseling than it does,
Yeah, yeah. As I
religious
said, the
preaching.
imam in the US does many things. I would say more than I never imagined in my life, like family counseling, couple counseling, many of this. Also, like social work, like you know, you take people to hospitals, you take them to get insurance, you help them, like you know, you go to find resources out there. But for me, I enjoy like helping. So I'm kind of like not only using my academic training and Azhari traditional training, but also using learning as well. Because as in the process, I learn how to do things, and learn about different resources. I also like there is also that part that where you deal with other faith organizations, holding seminars with them. I gave several like lectures in church in the synagogue. So I kind of also this is another part that people don't do like back home or in any like Muslim country. But here you have to maintain strong relations with other faith organizations, and it is like we feel that all like religious organizations are in the same boat, like you know, a certain time, and we have like regular meetings with clergy here, and we discuss about the problems of the town and how we can cooperate together to fix them and all those things.
Yeah, that actually is an interesting topic, even the vocabulary using, like clergy or faith communities. This is based in a society that in which the division is sometimes between the religious and the not religious rather than this religion or that religion. So anyway, we've taken up a lot of your time. Okay, all right. Thank you very much. This is wonderful. We will,
Yeah, thank you so much for
yeah, thank you very
thank
much.
you, thank you so much.